Hi there. It's October 28th, and today we're concluding our journey through Paul's letter to Titus, and we're in chapter 3, reading the whole chapter from verses 1 to 15. Paul brings to a conclusion this letter with some very practical instructions and some pointers for Titus to take to the church to encourage them to live in a way that reflects the amazing grace that God has poured out upon them. So first of all, as he did in Romans 13, Paul is pointing out the need to be submissive to rulers and to authorities, not to be contentious, not to provoke problems and troubles, and to be gentle, not to be quarrelsome, not to be full of enmity, but to live as people who reflect the kingdom of heaven coming to earth, as people who reflect the kingdom of peace and its unity coming to earth through gentleness. He says, after all, we ourselves, and he points back to us, Paul often does this, says we once used to be like this. We were quarrelsome, we were foolish, we were deceived. We lived in this, but because of the grace that was poured out on us, and not because of our righteousness, not because of anything we've done, we've received salvation. We've received this amazing gift of God's free grace and of this regeneration. He says the washing of regeneration through the power of the Holy Spirit. Now, there's an interesting fact here in his use of the word regeneration. This word, which in Greek is palingenesia, we might use the English word palingenesis. It's made up of two words. Palin means again, and genesis, which means birth or start. And it's used by Jesus in the Greek of Matthew, in Matthew 19:28, to refer to the renewal of all things, to refer to the resurrection and the renewal of the earth when the Son of Man will sit on his throne. And his people will sit with him. So that's the only other place that this word palingenesia is used. But here it's used to mean the washing of regeneration, the washing of new birth, palingenesia, being born again. And it's an unusual word because, as I say, only used twice in the Greek scriptures. But Paul is obviously pointing to the fact of the amazing gift that we have received through God, so that we can be justified, we can be presented clean and whole before God and made his heirs in accordance with the hope of the life of the age to come. So he's pulling this together. He's saying we're not just behaving ourselves because we're living in fear of God, we're behaving ourselves because we're reflecting something of God's kingdom, God's kingship, which will eventually reign over the whole earth, is coming through us. And so he tells Titus to insist on these things, to stand firm on these things, so that there may be a resulting outflow of good works among the people of God. He says, stay clear of the word fights, stay clear of the vain squabblings. We as human beings are so liable to squabble about words and doctrines and teachings. He says, no, let your good works be seen. Let the work in your life flow out. Let the deeds be seen rather than the words. And then Paul closes up the letter with some personal greetings. He says he's going to send Artemis or Tychicus to Crete to see Titus, and when that happens, he's hoping that Titus will come and see him in Nicopolis, where he's decided to spend the winter. He's mentioning Zenas, the lawyer, and Apollos, and saying make sure that while they're with you, they're looked after well. And it's this very personal touch, this very personal care that Paul's got for his friends, that those who work with him. And he says, make sure that people are fruitful in their lives. Let's not be given over, as he said, to these squabbles, but let's be fruitful in our lives so that we have the means to be able to support, the means to be able to bless and be fruitful. Paul closes then this letter, the last sentence, just sending greetings to all, and imparts grace to them. Let grace be with you all. As we see this closing chapter of Paul's letter to Titus, we can be challenged ourselves as well, not to get caught up in arguments and in words, but actually to let our lives flow out in beauty, in order, in the goodness of God, to rejoice in this palingenesia, in this rebirth that we have been given through Jesus, and that points to his coming, his kingdom coming in power through our lives on the earth. Have a very good October 28th.